Perfect. All right, Neil. Personally, thank you very much for coming online. I'm going to give a brief description of you to anybody who doesn't know who you are. So this is Neil Williams. He's the chairman of the UKBJJA. I think you took over that position in 2021, if I'm correct. Also, he's a black belt under Pedro Bessa and coaches at a CTC, which is in somewhere in Wales. I can't remember where it is. So yeah, is there anything you'd like to say about yourself, Neil? How long have you been involved in jiu-jitsu? A little bit about your experience, things like that.
Yeah, cool. Cheers, Tom. Yeah, my academy is in the Rhondda Valley in South Wales. We've got about an hour or so outside of Cardiff, for those not familiar with the area. Pretty much, as you said, mate, I've been the chair of the UKBJJA for a little while now, just over a year or so. Second degree black belt under Pedro Bessa. Been training jiu-jitsu since about 2005, 2006. Usual story for most people who've been training that amount of time. Did a bit of grappling and amateur MMA and bits and pieces before that. Yeah, I've been with Pedro since day one. All of my belts through him, and doing some work with the association probably for about 6 years on and off in various positions, but as chair over the last 12 months.
Yeah, nice. So first thing I want to do is just kind of discuss the UKBJ. I can never say it properly. UKBJJA. It's got too many letters in it. Because I think a lot of people have a bit of a misconception about what it's about and like how it supports academies. So if you could just kind of touch on that a little bit, that'd be fantastic. And then we're going to talk the wonderful world of insurance.
Yeah. So the association, which is much easier to say than UKBJJA, been set for a number of years. Originally set up by Dave Cole, Dickie Martin, Simon Hayes, and a number of proper old school jiu-jitsu guys in the UK. I think the guys at the time saw the potential for growth for Brazilian jiu-jitsu in the UK, the way things are going in the States and across other areas of Europe, and were really keen to protect the integrity of the sport. What the guys didn't want doing is people coming in and trying to make money out of jiu-jitsu and want to maintain a high standard. Get sports recognition and all the good things that come with it. So the primary goal of the previous board was to get sports recognition and set up as an NGB, open the doors for funding, development and future growth of jiu-jitsu. So we've got a new board come in now, myself as chair, Simon Ling as treasurer, James McIntyre doing some great work up in Scotland, Robert over in Northern Ireland, Jimmy and Dan Strauss supporting us with a lot of activity, and Stuart Forrester across England as well. So our goal now is to support members, clubs. Really, I just want more people doing jiu-jitsu, more people doing jiu-jitsu safely. You know, I'm not particularly interested of some of the other stuff that comes with jiu-jitsu, but primary goals are as many people as possible doing jiu-jitsu and doing it safely.
Yeah, I think that's really important to touch on. Like a lot of people, there's a lot of governing bodies out there, or that are perceived as governing bodies of jiu-jitsu, that can be quite negative. I know Germany, for one, has quite a bad governing body, is the word that I'm going to use. And obviously, I've known most of the guys. You know, I've known Dickie and Simon for many years, and yourself as well. And you know, originally I was a little bit skeptical of the UKBJJA, in all honesty, because I have seen the way that some governing bodies act, certainly in other martial arts as well. You know, Taekwondo is another one that's a great example of just utter chaos. But, you know, I recognize that then it also needs to be something to kind of support jiu-jitsu. And the association, I'm going to use that, is doing a pretty good job of that. You know, I mean, they've got accreditation now by Sport England, which is like, I guess it's Sport UK or whatever now, but huge step. It's now being able to be used in GCSEs for kids who want to do that kind of thing. You're starting to put in place of, like, you know, members have to have insurances when they're, you know, setting up gyms, need to have DBS checks, all of those kind of things, which to me is like very positive steps forwards. Like, I really feel that we need to get away from not having this kind of professional attitude where you just set up a gym and anybody can go into it, and then they don't have any of these standards, you know.
If you think about, you know, way back when I first started, the landscape of jiu-jitsu in the UK and across the world is significantly different now. You know, jiu-jitsu is becoming more and more mainstream. We've got more and more people doing jiu-jitsu. And just to touch on your previous point about governing bodies and associations and federations, the UKBJJA is a non-profit organisation. We're all volunteers, other than one employee. We brought Laura on board as our administrative officer, and she's fantastic. Everybody else volunteers their time. I've got a busy day job. I run a gym, and I do this for the association. So it's just a group of people who just want to do the best things we can. And exactly what you said about the minimum standards, we need to make sure that we protect our members, protect our instructors, and protect the clubs. The more popular jiu-jitsu gets, unfortunately, the more exposure there's going to be to things happening. Unsavory characters, unfortunately, they come up in all walks of life. Jiu-jitsu is no different.
Yeah.
We need to make sure everybody's protected.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite fortunate. I've been teaching since 2003, so I've been literally teaching my entire adult life in like more traditional martial arts, kickboxing, FMA, screamer, things like that. So I've seen all of this come up and be problematic for academies, for instructors. Obviously a ton of negative instructors out there as well who are just doing, awful things that we need to get away from as a sport. And it's good that really I think BJJ is very young in the UK as well. So to have something like the UKBJJA set up early is really crucial, because hopefully the guys who are coming on board now are more understanding about having to have these policies in place and having to make sure that they're doing it the right way, because jiu-jitsu can be, it can be life-changing for people, but also at the same time, there is, as we've just realized in the US with this big case that's going to come up, there's a serious risk of injury for people when they're on the mats. I'm relatively fortunate that over the course of my career, the most serious injuries that I've seen are usually like meniscus tears, ACL injuries, a few things like that. But if you don't have the right protections in place, you can really open yourself up to like a world of trouble, which you definitely don't want to have to deal with. Like, number one, there's the financial implications of it, but number two, it's just a headache to deal with. It's such a hassle to go through insurance companies and go through lawyers and all of that kind of stuff. And if you don't have things in place, it just makes it way harder.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we all just want to be teaching jiu-jitsu and doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If we put some of these processes and things in place early doors, then if something does come up, then it should protect us as much as we possibly can, so we can concentrate on doing the stuff that we want to do.
Yeah, and in my experience as well, having those things in place ultimately makes your gym more successful, because you are being more professional. Your students see it. So for the growth of an academy, if you put those things in place, it will massively help you, because you're just providing a better service for people. Your students are able to see that you care about what's happening to them, and like how you're progressing them forwards. So in terms of minimum standards for an academy, what are the things that that have to be there? Like literally the things that always should be there, no matter what, whatever else you've got in place. From
my own personal experience and from that of the association, you've got to have adequately first aid trained people at your academy at all times. We'd like to think the serious accidents never happen. We've got some personal experience of Gavin, one of the guys who runs one of the affiliates under me. One of the guys had a stroke on the mat. That's quite recent. If it wasn't for the quick thinking of the guys there, then who knows what would have happened. We recently held a emergency first aid for sport course at my academy about 2 weeks ago, and I've got 14 people who are able to do first aid. It's paramount. It's the difference between saving lives and not. It's as simple as that. So first aid, adequate first aid, not one of these online courses that doesn't really mean anything. You need to get a proper first aid certification. Safeguarding, all coaches should have safeguarding. You should know what to do and what not to do and what to do in what situations. Enhanced DBS. If you're sending your children to train at the academy where there aren't enhanced DBS, PVG or Access NI coaches, you need to step back and have a little think about what you could possibly be exposing them to. Things like I say, first aid, safeguarding, enhanced DBS as a minimum.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
insurance.
Yeah, the safeguarding something that's quite often missed, I think, within academies. There's a group online called, I think it's Safeguarding Martial Arts Code. I don't know if you know about those guys or not.
No.
But they're like the same thing, a not-for-profit. Basically, they set out the standards for gyms for having like becoming accredited by this thing and setting up the standards that they have in place. So it's things like, you know, having a safeguarding officer in place, having a reporting officer in place, having some mechanism for reporting incidents, you know, safeguarding incidents that you need to have in there. So there's this whole list of things that you have to do to get this accreditation. It doesn't actually necessarily mean anything in terms of like what it's going to do for you, but by doing that, it shows that you're taking that care over your students as well. You know, you got to have a child protection officer in place. If you don't have a child protection officer in place, you know, you can't get this thing. That child protection officer needs to be trained in safeguarding. So it adds that extra layer on top of it. So I think it's a very good thing for academies to get into and start looking at as well, because it would just help you so much. And, you know, I've been through a good number of different courses on safeguarding, you know, for vulnerable adults, which is another thing that often gets missed as well. Like you have to be, it's not just about kids, it's about vulnerable adults as well that you're working with. You have to understand and start to recognize patterns of behavior, signs of abuse, you know, and how you deal with those, because it can be quite, you know, it can be quite scary in all honesty for an instructor.
It is quite scary, you know, unless you've been through this training and you've had advice and you've had support. A lot of times you just don't know what to do, and you get exposed to lots of people from lots of different backgrounds, lots of different situations every day. And you know, as a jiu-jitsu coach and instructor, you're not just a jiu-jitsu coach and instructor. You end up being a counselor. You end up being all sorts of things. But you know, you need to be able to identify these things and act appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of insurance, which is another thing that I wanted to touch on, obviously UKBJJA, we use UKBJJA, the association, for our insurances, because to me it's the most cost-effective one. I've used Martial Guard as well in the past. I think they're all basically underwritten by the same people anyway, which is Sun Alliance, if I remember correctly. What's kind of the minimum level of cover that you should have? Obviously we're going to be talking about UK, but I suspect it's similar around the world as well.
Yeah, things have changed quite a bit. I know we mentioned previously about the recent issue in the States, but prior to that, post the COVID pandemic, trying to get a comprehensive insurance for coaches, clubs, members, really, really difficult. You know, we were with the previous people we were with, when we came to renewal, they cut the cover drastically because there's so much nervousness, and they increased the premium drastically. So a few of us probably spent about 6-8 months speaking to brokers. We brought in a specialist to give us advice and support. What's the best insurance product out there? It was a massive piece of work. And I think the insurance that we offer through the association now is probably one of the best around for the money you pay. So there's things like £5 million of public liability, 5 million of professional indemnity, employers' liability, which a lot of the policies don't cover. A lot of the jiu-jitsu gyms are quite different to other sports and NGBs, where they're set up as either limited companies or limited companies not for profit. You know, if you're employing people, you need employers' liability, and that's covered up to 10 million. Your officials, your coaches need to be covered under the policy. So we put a lot of work in trying to get a really good, robust insurance product, which comes as part of the membership. So it covers people if you are taken to court, if something does happen. And, you know, these recent events that have come up in the States, it shows how easy it is. People like to think, that'll never happen in my academy. That's my mate that I train with. They're not going to take me to court because I've accidentally smashed on an arm bar and broke their arm. You won't believe how many emails and messages and contacts I get pretty much every week and every month across the UK. It's just coming more. It was happening more and more. We're just seeing cases all the time. Where people are being taken to court, people don't have cover, people are contacting us and saying, I haven't got cover, what do I need to do? I think it's just, as jiu-jitsu grows, we just see more and more of it happen.
Yeah, it's bananas. I mean, you have to have that professional indemnity, like the student-to-student insurance. In my experience, it often doesn't really cover people, but you still have to have it there. Obviously, if we're employing people, we've got to have that in place, and good sizable policies as well. You know, needs to be in there.
You know, if you're employing people, it's a legal requirement. You have to have it. It's not negotiable. And I think with the policy that we've recently been able to secure through the association, member-to-member cover and the public liability is part of it. But if you've got an individual membership, it also covers you internationally and to train at any gym in the UK. So you've got an element of cover there. Subject to circumstances. But that's
something I regularly see questioned is like, can I get insurance to go and compete over in the US, or can I get insurance to go and do this and that? Oh yeah, I wouldn't even. Yeah, but like at least we've got it within the UK, which is a good thing. I mean, I don't want to. I know, like to me, the reason I use the UKBJJA policy is because it's very good, it's very comprehensive. I was paying, to give people an example, when I was through Martial Guard, I was paying two and a half thousand, I think,
Yeah.
for the public liability and the professional, the employment liability, all that kind of stuff, plus another £80 per instructor on top of that for their public liability. So over the course of the year, I think our insurance bill was close to like 4 or 5 grand just on insurance. Yeah. The UKBJJA, I think the one that we're on presently is like 400, which covers the majority of our students and our professional one.
Yeah, that's your gold memberships. It could be students while they're training at the academy. It could be, I think it's 4 of your coaches within the gold policy. If you want to add another one, it's 45 quid.
Yeah,
if you that's individual membership, it's 15 quid for the year.
Yeah,
you know.
The
other sports, it's a third of what most other sports charge.
Yeah, so if anybody out there, obviously in the UK, I would highly recommend their policy, and I do recommend people going to the UKBJJA. But if you're not out there, there's probably a governing body that has something similar. I would hope there's something out there. Regardless, you have to have these things in place. It's super important. Like if you don't have them in place, you are putting yourself in such danger. Like as we saw in the US, it's $46 million, which probably won't be $46 million by the time it's like arbitrated and all of that kind of stuff. But man, even if it was, I know this is going to go down from $46 million, like I would be having kittens about that.
I've had quite a few messages, obviously, since that incident. Well, what does that mean? If we were to get sued for something and we get done for 46 million, and I don't have 46 million.
Yeah.
There's a jiu-jitsu coach out there who is earning 46 million. I'd like to know what they're doing. But the courts are within their legal rights to bankrupt you and take everything off you. Up to a sum that they can cover. The insurance company will cover an element, but if you haven't got insurance, they can bankrupt you. It's as simple as that. So for the sake of a couple hundred quid for your academy for the year, or 15 quid per person, it's a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. In the last kind of video that I put out, I talked a little bit about having things like lesson plans and curriculums being in place and instructor training in place as well. In my experience, when I being dealt with insurance claims against me, they were very useful to have in place, because I could go to the insurer, the whoever it was, the lawyers or whatever, and be like, look, we had all of this stuff in place. This is what our coaches were trained on. This is what we know that this person was trained on, how to deal with this situation. It became very useful. Is that something that you would recommend for people to do as well?
Yeah, definitely. People talk about waivers not being worth the paper that they're written on when it comes to a legal perspective, because if you're negligent, you're negligent. However, having documented evidence that you followed correct processes, it makes sense to do that. Things like making sure that you know who's in your academy, people logging on. You've got people saying, I had an accident on this date. Well, you weren't actually in the academy on that date. Things like that. Logging people in, checking them in, making sure people are booked on, having your processes in place. And I think you touched on a little. It's the perception also that it gives to your members. It's the professionalism that everything, your house is in order. But if something does happen, having that documentation is better than having nothing at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just to go back to the checking in and checking out thing, the way that highlighted me, and relating it to safeguarding again, is I'm going to talk from a personal, but I think everybody at some point is going to deal with a situation where there's either a custody battle or there's a parent involved who is not allowed to necessarily have access to that kid. That is something that I've dealt with probably at least once a year, I would say, within my course of it, because it's becoming more and more common. You get custody battles, broken homes, all of that kind of different stuff. And you need to be able to know who's picking up that child, for example. Like, is it, do you have like a registered person who's there to pick up that child? Do they know them? Are they allowed to pick them up? All of those kind of different things, which is where checking in and checking out becomes very important, and having notes on your system about who can do that. And also for us, what we do is we take all the kids to the door so we can drop them off at the parents. Absolutely crucial. But also in things of like fire as well. Like if you have a fire in your academy, where's your designated fire checkpoint? I can't remember the exact, the muster point or whatever it's called. Yeah. And you then need to have a list of all of the people who are in your academy at that time, in case anybody gets left behind. And if you don't have that, again, that's opening yourself up to a potential area of negligence, which you don't want to have in your business. So the checking in, checking out is crucial again.
Yeah, it's spot on. You know, as we said at the start, as jiu-jitsu grows, as classes get busier, as classes get bigger, it's so just worth investing this bit of time. And people don't like doing a lot of the non-teaching stuff, and they find things hard work. They find it difficult setting things up on systems. A lot of people are just good at teaching jiu-jitsu, not the administrative side. But, you know, getting somebody to help you and trying to get all this set up, it's just so worth doing. It's so worth spending that time up front.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, I completely agree. The professionalism just makes it better. And this is one of the issues, or one of the problems that I often see when gyms aren't run professionally. They're run as like kind of hobbies, and they're just like, oh, I'm going to open up a space, you know, and we're going to set things up. And inevitably they stop putting these systems in place. And that's when it becomes a hard work. Like, you know, yourself, obviously you're successful in your business life as well. Or not business life, but professional life. That was a mosquito. So that's now on the camera.
Not so successful.
Not so successful. But, you know, and then you have the gym on top of that. I mean, I'm guessing that you treat that like a separate business as well. Like it's treated as something that has to be in place. And, you know, it's two things that you're doing essentially.
So, and you know, the association is not here to tell anybody how to teach their classes, how to run their clubs. It's just to give guidance and advice. Yeah. And it's very much the way that I run my club. Is we try and set up the core things that you have to have to make things as easy as you can for yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, very much so. There's a list of things that you have to do. Not all of those things are good fun and exciting, but you know, you've got to get them done. You've got to get insurance sorted. You've got to get your safeguarding sorted. You've got to bring people in to do first aid training. A lot of the time, you'd rather go and do 10 rounds with somebody, but this stuff has got to happen. You know.
Yeah, that's the responsibility you take on as an instructor, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you see, you know, one of the other things that I've seen a lot with this case over in the US, do you think it's going to have an impact on what happens in terms of like insurances and people suing, or like, you know, are premiums going to go up because of it? You know, is it going to become kind of case law that's cited and used against jiu-jitsu clubs, any of that side? I know you've been talking to insurance companies about this.
Yeah, nothing really directly from the recent case, but I think as we touched on earlier, the more popular the jiu-jitsu gets, the more of these cases you're going to see.
Yeah.
The more mainstream we get, the more cases you're going to see. And there's a real nervousness from insurance companies to cover any contact sports. They look at jiu-jitsu, they see MMA, you know, and there's a nervousness of what they're exposing themselves to. The more of these cases we see in the press, and let's be honest, America's a very different beast.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
The rest of the world, there's a reason why very few insurance companies will cover you for training and competition in the States. But the more of these we see in the press, the more nervousness is going to be. So we're just going to keep working. We work really closely with Marsh Sports, who do a lot of the big NGBs. And anything that's raised, we just address that with them. But you know, it's common sense. The more exposure you get, the more of this stuff you see in the media, the bigger we get, the more nervousness is going to be. So I think all the association could do is just keeping to work with these people and trying to get really good insurance policies for the members.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, I don't want to turn this into like, I'm going to promote the UKBJJA, but like, one of the other reasons that I have involvement in them is because I don't have to do it. Like, at the end of the day, like, I'm just literally, I'm like, you guys sort it all out. Like, I don't have the extra time to be able to do that.
You know, like I said earlier, previously, our primary goal as a lot of volunteers was NGB recognition, getting that done. We've got that done, right? How can we professionalize the association and the sport to help our members? Well, we brought in Laura. Laura's brilliant. We brought in some processes. We're on a new system called Sport 80, where you can put all your members on. It sends out reminders, so you know when your membership is due. You know when your safeguarding training is due, your first aid, your DBS. If you're on the update service, we'll take all that information for you. You can either get printouts or on your mobile device, so you've got all your certification on there, and it just does it all. You know, we invested a hell of a lot of money for the association to be able to do that, so it takes all that pain away for members and for club owners. So once you're set up, you should be pretty much set up. It's a bit tricky sometimes at the start, but once you're done, you're done.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say that any decent professional organization will have something similar in place. You know, I spent a lot of time working with Nest, who are one of the UK kind of billing management companies. They had the same stuff in place, like, because they have to, you know, for them, it's like, you know, they were dealing with millions upon millions of pounds of like financial transactions. They had to have like independent servers. So any of those reputable companies or NGBs or whatever should have those things in place that you're going to deal with. So as I said, like I think that the UKBJJA the association is doing great things, but like go out there, find the one that's going to work for you, because to me that's, and I'm sure it's to you as well, Neil, like it'd be great if everybody was involved in it, but what's more important is that you have that stuff in place,
Absolutely.
regardless.
I'll always try and promote the association, because the more members we've got, the more power we've got to do better things, the more access we've got to funding, with participation numbers. But I would encourage people to look around, but really look around, look at what your insurance policy actually covers you for. People have messaged me and said, "Oh, I found this policy; it's really good." Look at the small print. We've got legal experts, we've got people that sit on the board who are experts in this sort of thing. We bring in consultants to look at stuff, and they go, "Actually, that insurance product doesn't cover you for sparring." And that's one of the things that we found before, the renewal of our previous policy. So they changed this for quite a lot of combat sports. Didn't cover you for any contact. Well, what are you covered for? Walking in the academy. Very little else. Yeah, it was literally that, Tom. It's,
I can imagine.
We want to charge you more. We're not covered for sparring.
Yeah.
You have seen jiu-jitsu. It's kind of key to what we do.
Well, I know that was one of the original reasons that the British Jiu-Jitsu associates, like traditional jiu-jitsu, they actually took a lot of the sparring out, is because their insurance, like, we can't do it anymore. And I don't think they wanted to change insurance companies or whatever. So British Jiu-Jitsu stopped all sparring across what they were doing, which really then started to dilute the sport down, and it's a terrible situation to be in.
It's not jiu-jitsu without rolling, is it?
No,
cover yourself as best you can.
In terms of one final thought on this kind of topic is waivers. We've mentioned it briefly, but it's always that question: is a waiver? Is it going to? Well, the first thing is it going to stand up in court? And I probably know the answer to that. And then secondly, is it worth having in place regardless?
First point, if you're negligent, you're negligent. So whether somebody signed a paper and you've done something ridiculous and caused them an injury, you're still negligent in the eyes of the law. Is it worth having in place? Absolutely. So mine is done through my online booking. So there's some word in there, which when people book on, they have to tick the box to say they've acknowledged it. And but again, it's the professionalism of your club. You're showing that these are the potential risks of training. You're accepting those potential risks of training by booking onto the club and attending the class. In a court of law, it's highly unlikely to stand up, but it's definitely worth having, in my opinion.
Yeah, it shows that you've taken that place. And the other thing, I guess, coming on from that as well is signature versus box tick, because a lot of the software that people use for like booking in and billing and management, they don't necessarily have the accessibility of signing doing a written signature. The one that we use does, but it's one of the questions that's really cropped up in the group is about, is a tick box okay? Do I actually need to have a physical copy of it? Do you have any insight into that at all?
From the association, no. From my day job, a little. So, electronic signatures are a thing. You acknowledge you sign electronically, then you can do that. I can take that away as a question and see if there's any legal guidance or insurance guidance. I know for things that I do within banking, then electronic signatures is a thing. But, let me take that away, and I'll drop into the chat on the group or something. That
would be really useful to know, because it is such a common question, and as I say, not everything you can put that wording in place. Is a tick box okay? Because my kind of understanding of it, which comes from the GDPR side of things, if you have that step where someone's physically taken an action, then it classes as, I'm going to say consent, which isn't necessarily the right word, but they've demonstrated that they have confirmed they've read it and are willing to proceed. But if
your marketing preferences, isn't
it? Exactly.
To receive information, you consent to do something. But I'll double check and try and get some info on that.
That would be fantastic. I don't have any other questions, Neil. Do you have anything else to add before we sign off?
I don't think there were a massive amount of questions into the chat. No. There was one or two on there, which I did jot down. So I'll just run through those quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
There was one around coaching, and being a BJJ black belt doesn't necessarily make you an amazing coach. So I can't remember the full question, but we are launching in the next couple of weeks a coaching certification For jiu-jitsu, it's not mandatory, it's recommended. So this will be through sports structures. It's in line with the coaching qualifications that you can get for other NGBs. So those people who've done judo and wrestling and stuff like that, there'll be a level 1 and level 2. This is mandatory requirement for the work that we do with the emergency services and the armed forces. So we will be rolling that out, I'm hoping, in the next 2 weeks. So the level 1 will go live straight away, and then the level 2 following that. So it is something we take serious. It is something that the armed forces and the emergency services take seriously, and you can't be a coach without it. And we've been working on that for a number of months. So it's got like the core structure of how to coach, warm up, classes, cool down.
May I have your attention, please?
Neil has just had to go quiet because of a broadcast. Oh, it's a fire alarm.
It's just a test. It's going to go off in a second. I'm in the office.
Oh, brilliant. That's really important. You've got to have the policies in place. Actually, in my gym, we used to do fire alarm drills in the gym. We did them for a while. It was like, because you have to have that kind of thing in place. It was bizarre. And we just randomly like pull the fire. Everybody have to go and muster, and it was just one of the things that you had to do. As a part and parcel, but you do it pretty much everywhere else. So you have to start thinking about those things within your gym.
Yeah, perfect timing is the weekly fire alarm test just went off in my office. So there may be somebody telling me the fire alarm test is complete in a second.
Good, yeah. That would be useful to know. Otherwise, I'm going to run out of my room.
I have to run out of the building.
Yeah.
My muster points and line up and make sure everybody's there. But no, and as I was saying, the coaching certification will be available very soon. So that's something that we are doing. There was a question about audit, governance, assurance. As I mentioned, the Sport 80 system, this will do this for us automatically.
Yeah.
So we'll know that coaches have got enhanced DBS, PVG, Access NI in Northern Ireland, first aid, safeguarding, and it will send out reminders. It'll send out reminders when your insurance membership is due. So we'll make sure that everything is in place. Trying to do this manually with a couple of volunteers previously has been an absolute nightmare, to be honest.
Yeah.
You imagine how labour intensive it is with, 500 clubs, 20,000 members of the association. Yeah. So it's quite difficult. This new system, that will take care of that. If any other questions from the group?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, even managing we have maybe 15, 20 coaches. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. Like remembering when their insurances are due, when their DBSs are due, all of that kind of stuff is like,
I know. Yeah, it takes you away from what you want to do. You want to be teaching jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly.
If the money we've invested in the system allows people to do that, make things easier, brilliant. I think the only other thing from me, Tom, is there's lots of stuff that we're trying to do to help grow jiu-jitsu across the UK. No politics, just more people doing jiu-jitsu, more people doing it safely. We're not for profit, handful of volunteers doing the best we can, handful of middle-aged people who are coming to the ends of being able to do much jiu-jitsu. But
very sensible people. Sorry, my fault. I accidentally paused something, Neil. So there's going to be a random break there. Okay, perfect. I mean, honestly, thank you for your time. Like, I'm hoping that people got some kind of value out of it and start to, even if they just start to think about the steps that they need to take, making sure that we've got insurance in place, safeguarding, first aiding, all the other things that we said, DBS, and I think there's one more. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Now you're on the spot. Go back to the beginning of the video.
But if anyone needs anything, any information, best way to get it is info@UKBJJA.org. I do get quite a lot of messages on social media and things like that from people I know, but I don't always get them, so I'm quite busy. But yeah, whack it in the email, and then Laura, one of the guys, will try and get back to you as soon as they can.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Neil.